Welcome to the 700 Club. The jab or your job. That's what some 84 million Americans are facing because of the Biden administration's new vaccine mandate. After more than 2 months, the rules for the mandate have finally been released.
More than 24 states are pushing back, and millions of employees say they'll lose their jobs rather than take the shot. So what comes next? Here's Jenna Browder with the latest.
This new mandate from the Biden administration affects some 84 million Americans who have until January 4th to get the shot. Already swift pushback from lawmakers, businesses, and others who are taking legal action. After weeks of protest against local vaccine mandates, now a new federal deadline for 2/3 of American workers. The Biden administration mandating medium-sized and bigger businesses require workers to get vaccinated or face weekly testing. The new rule also includes 17 million healthcare workers in nursing homes, hospitals, and other locations that receive money from Medicare and Medicaid. They do not have the option of testing and have to get the shot. Violators face a $14,000 fine. At a hearing on Capitol Hill, Dr. Anthony Fauci defending the move.
We know that vaccines absolutely save lives, and we know that mandates work.
States are pushing back, more than 24 taking legal action.
From the very beginning, I've told President Biden that I would defend the freedom of the people of South Dakota, and that if he took this action, that we would see him in court. But today I'm announcing to you that we are joining several other states in filing litigation against this unconstitutional mandate.
People should not be in a situation where they're faced with the jab or their jobs.
And several business groups expressing concern and arguing the mandate will burden them during the busy holiday season. The mandate also reportedly does not include a carve-out for truck drivers, sparking concern for an already hurting supply chain that's helped to feed inflation.
There are 80,000 truck drivers that are not on the job as we speak. That's up from 60,000 just a couple of weeks ago. This is getting worse and worse.
Add to that a recent survey from the Kaiser Family Foundation that shows 37% of unvaccinated workers say they would leave if their employer required them to get vaccinated or be regularly tested. So what are opponents specifically challenging? Some point out that while the mandate is supposed to be an emergency rule, it doesn't take effect until January, about 4 months after the president announced it. So they question how the regulation can be called an emergency. Opponents also note that COVID-19 cases have declined from a recent wave in September. And some, like Governor Ron DeSantis, argue this is government by bureaucracy and inconsistent with the Constitution. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, our CBN News medical reporter, Lori Johnson, is with us. And so, Lori, I've got to ask, what in the rules, how is this going to be enforced? I'm hearing $14,000 as a penalty for one violation, and I assume that OSHA can come in and find multiple violations. Are businesses going to go out of business because of this?
Well, the most interesting thing about it, Gordon, is there are only 1,200 OSHA employees who are tasked with enforcing this, and these millions of people and these thousands of companies. There's no way they can check every single company. So what they're going to be doing is basically relying on citizens reporting infractions. So regular people calling up OSHA and saying, hey, my company's not doing the mandates, or I know of a company that's not doing mandates. And then OSHA will be doing these spot checks.
Okay. Well, any information, anything in the regs about medical, religious exemptions, and then I've got to ask, how is this testing going to work?
Well, when it comes to the exemptions, there are very clear guidelines for employers about what you can and cannot do when it comes to accepting or rejecting an employee's request for an exemption. For example, if a person is saying they have a religious belief that causes them not to be able to get a vaccine. An employer is not allowed to question the validity of that belief, but they are allowed to question whether that employee sincerely holds that belief. So, for example, if an employee says, I object to drugs on a religious basis that have used fetal cell lines in their testing, which Pfizer and Moderna have, then an employer can say, do you also object to other drugs? Do you use other drugs that have also been tested on fetal cell lines, such as the 30 other drugs, including over-the-counter drugs like Tylenol, Motrin, Benadryl, prescription drugs like Zoloft, Z-Pak, Lipitor, and other vaccines like rabies, chickenpox, and shingles vaccines. In fact, in Arkansas, some employees were given a religious exemption, but they had to sign a form saying they don't use these 30-plus other drugs that also are tested on fetal cell lines.
Okay, well, that's it sounds like it's going to be really hard to get it. Tell us about the testing piece of it. If you're not vaccinated, how often do you have to be tested? What are the tests that are being mandated? How invasive are they? What's the testing piece?
Well, the tests have to be done once a week. And so if employees choose not to get vaccinated, they have to show a negative test once a week. And the most interesting part about this is that the employee has to pay for the tests. And also people who decide to not have the vaccine and go the testing route, they have to be vaccinated. And so I'm sorry, not vaccinated, they have to wear a mask. For employees who do choose to get vaccinated, the companies have to pay for time off for the employee to get vaccinated and also pay for time off if the employee doesn't feel so well after getting vaccinated. And that goes into effect December 5th because these people have to be fully vaccinated by January 4th.
Okay. What about the state laws that are now on the books banning vaccine mandates? Are they effective, or does federal law overrule them?
Well, the attorney for the Labor Department said that this new OSHA rule supersedes, this is a federal law, and he said that it supersedes any other state laws that ban vaccine mandates. So a lot of this is going to come out in court, Gordon. We know that there are a number of legal challenges to this new rule.
Okay, well, let's talk hope here. Pfizer says it has an experimental COVID pill that cuts hospitalization, cuts death by 90%. What can you tell us about the new treatment?
Well, these are fantastic. These are antiviral pills. So if you feel bad, you can go to the doctor and they will give you these pills that you can take twice a day for 5 days, and it cuts the risk of hospitalization and death by 89%. So the FDA is obviously looking at this information right now, and this Pfizer drug could be approved as early as January. And there's another drug that's very similar, also an antiviral pill by Merck that the FDA is looking at, and they say that it reduces hospitalization and death by 50%. So folks can kind of compare these. These are to COVID-19 what Tamiflu and Relenza and 2 other antiviral pills are to the flu. Very effective, very exciting.
All right. Well, Lori, thanks for that good news, and thanks for the report. If you want something to really help you go to sleep at night, I highly recommend reading the Osha regulations that the government just put out. But you'll notice, as long as you're staying awake through the first part, they spend page after page after page justifying the action and justifying how it's an emergency action to stop a pandemic. They really are trying to bootstrap themselves into a position of authority, saying our mandate from Congress is to maintain safe working environments, and we're in an emergency situation and we can't wait for Congress to act. We have to create these regulations on our own based on the president's mandate. So if you want to go to sleep, it's a wonderful way to put yourself to sleep. At the same time, if you run a business with over 100 people, get ready for a brand new day. If you get found with some kind of violation, that you're not following it, you're not making sure that unvaccinated people wear masks all the time. They can't take them off ever. You have to ensure that those who claim vaccinated are truly vaccinated. And then for those who are unvaccinated, you have to make sure they're being tested. The law is quite specific. It's taking that cost of testing and putting it on the employee, not the employer. But that, for the employer, if you're not verifying it and you're not following up, you've got $14,000 in fines. That's the minimum fine for each violation. This is absolutely incredible. And Terry said it earlier. It's like they're trying to make everybody in America mad.
Well, not just mad. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm going to say, when I hear all of this, I go, wait a minute. Not only are you telling people that they have to do this, not only are you shutting down businesses, but you're now pitting American citizens against each other, because I'm going to tell on you. I mean, you just got to look at it and go, what in the world is going on? Talk about the legal part of this, because if these states are going to come against some of this, when does that happen? Can it stop this?
The federal courts will always back the federal law. That ship sailed a long time ago, back in the 1930s, with the expansion of the Commerce Clause. And under the Commerce Clause, Congress has broad ability to regulate interstate commerce. Every business in America is engaged in interstate commerce, and so there's no way you can avoid the regulation. Where it might have a weakness is this truly an emergency? You know, a year and a half, into the pandemic, is it still an emergency? And, you know, is the 4-month delay from the president announcing it to it being enforced, does that underscore emergency or count against it?
Can it stop it?
My prediction is the federal courts will enforce it, and then we're into a whole new ball game. The good news is we got an election in a year, so. But in the same time, that's a long way away, and this thing comes into effect on January 4. Wow. In other news, President Biden's huge social spending and climate change bill is still facing opposition. The big issue, how much will it really cost? Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, after failing to bring both the bipartisan infrastructure bill already passed by the Senate and the president's expensive Build Back Better plan to a vote Thursday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was ready to try for a vote again today. Even so, moderate Democrats still have several questions about the president's bill, including the cost, although supporters say it will come to $1.75 trillion over 10 years. An estimate from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School says the actual cost could be as high as nearly $4 trillion and potentially add more than $2 trillion to the national debt. Turning now to Israel, just north of the city of David, archaeologists believe they have found the first of its kind engraving on a precious gem. And as CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell tells us, the engraving is a biblical plant known to many as the balm of Gilead.
Deep underground in a 2,000-year-old drainage ditch next to Jerusalem's Western Wall, archaeologists say a rare artifact from Second Temple times was uncovered.
It's a stone seal made of semi-precious amethyst stone with an engraving of a dove and a branch of a tree with fruit on it. And what was surprising was that it's a branch with fruits that are not recognized with other seals from that period.
The seal would have been on a ring. It was found while archaeologists and volunteers were sifting the remains from the drainage ditch at the Emek Surim National Park, operated by the City of David.
Once we found the seal with the branch and the fruit, we hypothesized that it was the biblical persimmon fruit plant as mentioned in the Bible and in the sources of the Second Temple and the Byzantine periods.
This biblical persimmon plant is not related to the orange persimmon fruit of today. It was known in ancient times by several names: bosom, balsam, and even the balm of Gilead.
Jerusalem's primary drainage channel was built under the Pilgrimage Road. The Pilgrimage Road started from the Shiloach pool in the city of David and went up to the temple of the Second Temple period. Apparently, this ring with the seal fell into the drainage ditch 2,000 years ago.
For 1,000 years, ancient Hebrew farmers were the only ones in the world known to cultivate this exotic plant. using it for medicinal and cosmetic purposes. Guy Ehrlich has been working to revive that biblical agriculture and is the only one in the country growing that biblical persimmon. That's why archaeologist Eli Shukran took the stone to Ehrlich's farm for him to see.
It's just amazing. Someone took a branch of the balm of Gilead and drew it on the stone. It does not remind me of any other plant I know.
Biblical and historical sources also say it was used during the Second Temple period as one of the more expensive ingredients for producing the temple incense.
This is the same persimmon that is identified with the biblical persimmon. It is the persimmon that served as the first of the incense ingredients of the temple and as the anointing oil of the kings and priests.
Ehrlich has 10,000 balm of Gilead trees. He markets perfume and essential oil from the trees. He also grows frankincense.
There is a wall-to-wall agreement that this is the plant, but there is little graphic depiction of it. And what you have brought me now is really a greeting from history. I felt like someone wrote me a note with a drawing of the fruit of my persimmon plant and sent it to me.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
I love that phrase, a greeting of history. Gordon?
It's amazing how archaeology is proving the Bible. Literally every single week, you're getting a new archaeology story coming out of Israel that shows these amazing things. And if you've ever had an opportunity to get some of these wonderful scents that are coming out of Israel today, whether it's frankincense or myrrh or spikenard, and now the balm of Gilead, I encourage you to do it. It'll take you on a sensory journey back to the Holy Land.